One of the most common questions I receive from TIAA participants is if I'm receiving payments from a transfer payout annuity, does that satisfy my required minimum distribution? The answer is maybe, and that's where things can become more complicated than many retirees realize. Let's assume you're age 73 and receiving annual payments from a TIAA transfer payout annuity. It's easy to assume that because money is already coming out of your account, your required minimum distribution has automatically been satisfied. But that's not necessarily the case. Many participants have more than just TIAA traditional inside their 403B. They may also own CREF stock, CREF bond market, CREF money market, life cycle funds, or other investment options inside the same retirement plan. Your RMD may be based on the value of all eligible assets within the account, while the TPA is only one component of the overall retirement plan. As a result, it's important to determine whether the annual TPA payment is sufficient to satisfy the required distribution amount. If it isn't, you may need to take additional distributions from other investments within the plan. Why does this matter from a planning perspective? This is where retirement income planning becomes much more important than simply calculating an RMD. First, you determine the total RMD required from the account. Next, you determine how much of that requirement is already being satisfied by the TPA payment. Then you evaluate whether additional distributions are needed, and if so, which investments those distributions should come from. Should they come from a money market fund, a bond fund, an equity fund, TIAA real estate? Those decisions can impact future growth potential and portfolio risk. And remember, your RMD amount changes every year because account values and IRS life expectancy factors change. Meanwhile, the TPA follows its own payout schedule. That means there's often ongoing coordination required from year to year. The IRA planning challenge. Another common situation occurs when someone rolls their non-TIAA traditional investments into an IRA, but leaves TIAA traditional inside the 403B because of the TPA rules. Now you have two separate retirement account structures working at the same time. You may be receiving annual TPA payments from the 403B while also maintaining a traditional IRA. This is where many retirees become confused. Because money's already coming out of the 403B, it's easy to assume that those TPA payments will also satisfy the required minimum distribution obligation from the IRA. Generally, that is not the case. The IRS treats traditional IRAs and 403Bs as separate categories for RMD purposes. While RMDs may be aggregated within certain account types, an IRA RMD generally cannot be satisfied using distributions from a 403B, and a 403B RMD generally cannot be satisfied using a distribution from an IRA. As a result, even if your annual TPA payment satisfies all or part of your 403B RMD obligation, you may still have a separate RMD requirement from your IRA. Likewise, taking additional IRA distributions generally will not satisfy any remaining RMD obligation associated with the 403B. This becomes especially important when coordinating retirement income because the TPA follows its own distribution schedule while IRA distributions remain under your control. In some situations, the TPA may generate more income than you actually need because the goal is to distribute principal over time rather than simply satisfying an RMD. That additional income creates ripple effects throughout your financial plan. It may increase taxable income, it may increase the taxation of Social Security benefits, it may increase Medicare Part B and Part D premiums through IRMAA surcharges. It may affect Roth conversion opportunities, and it can impact how and when you take distributions from other retirement accounts. None of these issues necessarily make the TPA a bad option. For many participants, it can be an excellent solution. But it highlights why TIAA planning often requires looking at the entire retirement income picture rather than evaluating TPA by itself. The real question isn't simply, how do I get money out of TIAA traditional? The real question is, how does my TIAA distribution strategy fit into my overall retirement plan?